Hello guys, and I think we're all gonna like this weekly update because it is full of Russian failures and losses, and not just on the front lines but literally everywhere. Starting from the collapsing Russian economy, sanctions against Gazprom, ruble prices that keep falling, and finishing with Bashar Assad escaping from Russia-backed up Syria to Moscow, where Putin does not have any money or powers to return him back. And brave people of Georgia stand against fake pro-Russian government and their desire to change the constitution. I am sure they will protect the democratic European future, and Ukrainian people stand firm with them. And we kept demilitarizing the evil empire with precise strikes on their military objects, starting from two air bases, one in Kursk, another one in the temporarily occupied Crimea. Lots of Russian air defense systems were destroyed this week, which actually promises something good coming in the following. We've neutralized a military plant in Kaluga that was responsible for the production of various radio location systems for the Russian missiles, and -1 big oil depot in Rostov region. So let's discuss all of these important events on our way to defeat and demilitarize Russia from an ordinary Ukrainian perspective. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the collapse of the Kremlin, the demilitarization of Russia, and also protect yourself against their evil narratives and hybrid warfare around the world, subscribe. We discuss all of that on the channel. And we will start with the collapse of Gazprom Bank, which is the result of sanctions, the US sanctions. It seems like Garry Kasparov, perhaps the only real acting oppositioner in Russia, once described that country as just a big gas station with nuclear weapons, outdated nuclear weapons. And we all know that Russia is not competitive on the innovative market, and all they offer their raw materials and resources. That's why Gazprom company and Gazprom Bank are central for the survival of Putin's military machine. And finally, it was sanctioned by the United States, and the result is tremendous. In just the last 6 months, Russian ruble lost 1/3 of its value, and now it ranks the second most devalued in the world, which is phenomenon when you think about Putin's image that he takes on various BRICS meetings, threatening the world with the growing Russian economy and strengths, when in reality the numbers, the books demonstrate just the contrary. For example, the price of one share of Gazprom is approximately $1. So right now we observe a tremendously fast inflation, efforts in Russia to stop it by rising key interest rates potentially to 23 or 25% this December, thus killing various mid-sized businesses in Russia, and, well, repeating the Soviet history, the Soviet collapse. And to some extent, Putin dreamt to recreate the USSR, and he achieved, but not the one he wanted, but the one that existed in the end of 80s, just before its tremendously loud collapse. So there is no need to name the price of ruble in comparison to dollar because it keeps falling. Russia tries to prevent it by halting currency buying until 2025, so they may not show up prices, but we all know the records were broken, and sometimes in Moscow you could see that $1 is 118 rubles. And in Russia, they do measure everything with dollars, despite showing off they are totally anti-Western. So that's insane, and it definitely tells us that on the black market, the prices can be even worse as people panic, as people start taking away money from the banks, thus causing more troubles for the Russian economy, and try to exchange them to the rotting dollars and euros, thus like killing Russian economy. Well, I totally support them in this panic. You have to panic if you live in Russia. Subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine and all strong people who stand for freedom and democracy, and we see a lot of them in different corners of the world. Just in the previous months, we spoke about the elections in Moldova, which despite all the Russian warfare, hybrid warfare and provocations, did not go according to the Kremlin's plan. And now we see a tremendous failure of Putin in Syria. I agree with many Ukrainian YouTubers and international voices actually who say that this collapse of Bashar al-Assad's regime and his escape to Moscow can actually be one of the greatest failures of Putin in history in general. Well, you have to understand that the regime of al-Assad existed only because Russia was main sponsor. And Russia gave this regime aviation, with which they destroyed Aleppo, just as they later did with Ukrainian Mariupol. And what is also important, by demilitarizing Russia, destroying their military air bases, stocks of their missiles, bombs, with long-range strikes, we actually protect other countries like Syria from Russian aviation. Because actually the only reason that this Assad's regime survived in Syria for a decade was the backup of Russian Wagner Group mercenaries and aviation. Without that, you see, troubles appear really quickly. And it is also a very vivid illustration that Russia has run out of money. Their blitzkrieg in Ukraine that lasts instead of 3 days for 3 years can seriously exhausted everything. And we see that they are losing their grasp over lots of territories. They have protests against Russia in Russia-backed up quasi-republic Abkhazia, which will return to Georgia. They cannot finalize the results of their fake elections in Georgia because brave people went out on the protests. And what we observe in Syria is a disgrace of the so-called Russian army because they flee the bases. They leave lots of weapons. Rebels actually got 4 or more of Russian aircraft. They take away old Soviet armored vehicles, and there are lots of photos all over X and Blue Sky. Follow me there, the links in the description of this video. And it is a disgrace and an illustration of this weakness of totally fake image of Russia as a big drunk bear that can do whatever it wants. No, it doesn't have enough men, wisdom, and since recently and very vividly, money. So that's actually good. And I am sure more interesting things to happen in the former regions that Putin tried to control. And what makes me even more interested is the fact that in January 2025 we have elections in Belarus. Let me know in the comments below, do you think anything can happen in this country? Because in 2020 they did everything to change Lukashenko, but unfortunately the world was not brave enough to support them. We should, because just have a look at Georgia and please tell this to anyone who doubts. If we want peace, security in this very big actually part of the world, we need to defeat and demilitarize Russia, because it is the reason of all problems, conflicts, wars, deaths and destructions here. If you take away the factor of Russia, you don't have any problems with Ukraine, with Georgia, with Moldova, with the Baltics. Literally, we can negotiate, we can discuss, we can strengthen each other. Russia is the problem. Russia is the bully. You know, previously people compared Russia to a hooligan, but as for me, this is a too soft term to describe a serious murderer. So ask countries that border with Russia, what do they want? Defeat and demilitarization. Subscribe and please share the videos on your social media platforms. This helps to spread more information about dangerous Russian hybrid wars, including in your societies, and of course to remind people about the bravery and resilience of all those nations, not just Ukrainians, who stand against Russian imperialism. And what we observe right now in Georgia is heroism, and it actually reminds me greatly Maidan, our revolution of dignity back in 2013-2014. And I think that Russia is past, and no matter how hard it tries, it cannot return us back to this miserable living in the conditions of the Soviet Union, no matter what they do. But with your support, actually more good people can survive in my country, in Georgia, in other countries, and thus I think the planet will be a better place because they will be working, they will be studying, they will be eating and traveling. So, we have two options. We will be fighting against Russia until its complete defeat and demilitarization. And it is either more of us survive or less. And I pray that more. Because I'm sure that people who are so brave and who stand for freedom, who stand for other lives, who demonstrate respect to your values are actually a part of your family, even if they live in a troublesome area. So please help us defeat this evil. And we are doing our best. But please also support the NEFO campaign. We are 70% done. And I am very proud for all the support that we feel. I feel the pickup truck is already ours and lots of drones. So do invest in Ukrainian drones and help us demilitarize more of evil Russian objects. And I've received feedback of previous units who actually reported the destruction of Russian weapons. And this is what we can do again, and I know we can do it just as the patch says. During this week, we have destroyed 4 Russian air defense systems in Crimea, which means that something good is coming, I believe. Another Buk system neutralized in Zaporizhia temporarily occupied territories, which is also good, and it's a part of air defense too. And Ukrainian drones have also visited Rostov oil depot. It is used both by the Russian army, because Rostov is, I cannot say close to the front lines, because all of this Russia is already front lines. Putin brought war back home. Russians wanted it, Russians got it. More than 10 of their regions are an active war zone. So in this Rostov front lines, and it's also bad once again for the Russian economy, because they are totally dependent on oil prices and oil export. And I pray for prices falling and Russian economy collapsing faster. So I honestly think that this process already is irreversible, if you like it the way I do. And also there were precise ATACMS strikes on military airfield in Kursk, a military airfield in Belbek of the temporarily occupied Crimea was also targeted by the Ukrainian forces, and stockpiles of missiles neutralized in Yevpatoria. I can't wait for the day when Ukraine is free and you can come and discover more, and definitely you are invited to see Crimea. It was designed by God to be a resort, but not a rotting Russian military base. And one of the interesting targets that we've managed to neutralize this week was actually a military plant in Kaluga. And it was responsible for the production of various radio location elements that are a part of surveillance and also targeting parts in Russian missiles. But now the production is paralyzed, and all because of the inexpensive Ukrainian drones. So we see that Putin's blackmail with Oreshnik totally failed. His criminal friends went to North Korea to beg for more soldiers and more missiles that do not work properly. And honestly, I think at this moment in the course of the war, Putin has nothing left to threaten the world with. And no, I'm not afraid of nuclear escalation as a Ukrainian, as a person that can be like targeted #1 out of all in the world. So please, let's remain united and let's remain we have to defeat this evil, because otherwise conflicts, problems will continue all the time, and wars. We cannot afford ourselves to wait until Putin will go to hell naturally. He has to be defeated, and I dream to vlog from The Hague. I know I have some subscribers in this beautiful and very symbolic city, and you will all be invited too. Same as you invited to follow me on X, Instagram, Threads, Discord. We have a good quiz there, and Blue Sky. The community is growing quickly there, and all the links that you need you will find in the description of this video, same as a link to our merch shop, where we have -15% for all the products that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine, but also as meaningful and beautiful Christmas presents. So do check. This is like the best opportunity to get them with -15%. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for being friends of mine and friends of Ukraine. United we stand. Slava Ukraini!